You are welcome back. I'm Cherry Ojupu, and this is still the Eastern Business Report. In the Southeast, the resilient spirit of enterprise has already been our greatest export. Today, with our markets back to full capacity and the 5-day work week firmly restored, the focus has shifted. It is no longer about whether we can open our doors, but about what happens once we do. From federal tax reforms and the 2027 political horizon to the local policies shaping our industrial hubs, politics is the silent partner in every boardroom. Today we ask, is our political environment currently a catalyst for this renewed business energy, or is it creating new invisible hurdles? Joining us to analyze the political economy of the region is Mr. Nnamdi Obaya, Afia TV's political and economic correspondent. Mr. Obaya, it's good to have you.
Good morning.
Good morning. So now that the Southeast has successfully reclaimed its full business week, what is the most urgent political move needed to capitalize on this restored momentum?
I don't know if there is one thing that needs to happen. The main thing that was, the catalyst for the loss of Mondays was insecurity. People were afraid of things happening if they came out. So I think the question now will be, if we were to pick the thing that caused it, which is insecurity, has security been established everywhere? In tranches and in pockets, yes. In parts of, Enugu metropolis, central Nsukka, there's heavy security presence. There's the DRS, there's the cameras. There's, you would still have incidents, along the Nsukka way. The empty stretches of road are still the issues to be tackled. The same thing if you go to a place like Abia, safe in Umuahia, safe in Aba, you're safe in Afia, safe in the main towns. The question now becomes when you are, on the roads in between. Once you get out of Osisioma and you're back on the express, or you're coming through Isialangwa, or you are at Sukwato or anywhere that's not really densely populated, how safe are you? So that, has that been addressed? The governors of both Enugu and Abia have made great strides. For Imo, it's the same thing. Owerri Municipal, there's a sense of security. But when you get towards the outskirts, even whether you're going towards Owerinta or you're going towards Okigwe, again, even if you're going deeply in issues, we know that for a while, we don't know for sure the exact date, but Okigwe is still sketchy. Arondizogu is still sketchy. Olu has always been, even though they had the Christmas event there, everything last year, it's still 5 and 6 because, like I always say, there's that axis of insecurity from Ihiala all the way down to Olu that is something that has not been addressed. So I think it's to quickly show up that if we're talking about the working week, then it's mainly security. Let people be able to move goods and people at any time to anywhere, through anywhere, and that will go a long way in helping.
Okay, very well. So with the 2027 elections approaching, how do we prevent the political season from slowing down the recent economic gains we've seen in the region?
It's whether it slows down or not is a Nigerian thing. It's a Nigerian thing. Politics and religion are Nigeria's biggest industries, and that's why we're where we are. Because, if the industry generating the most money are producing no commercial value, then there's a big issue. It's not as if there's zero value. I was talking yesterday with somebody about, churches have trained people in the media, particularly in a place like Enugu. Churches like House on the Rock, Dominion City are responsible for training, particularly production people, because before Afia, there was no TV station, so no private TV station, I should say. So yes, there are things they do, but it's not something that the value of money increases with the value of output, which is what a good free market should be. So politics is the same thing. Politics is even worse in Nigeria because the political economy offers nothing. Politicians steal money and take it abroad, offers us nothing. So it will slow down the economy. It will slow down things because people will be focused on campaigning. However, there are areas that normally get boosts during political periods. the media, for example, political advertisements, then people who do branding, stickers, posters, branding of vehicles, t-shirts, face caps, transporters who carry mobilized crowds to and fro, people who have event centers, people who have places where rallies are done. So, tailors who sew party ashrabi. There are people who, I won't say it's, except with the media, printing, branding, I wouldn't say that there's any other industry segment that experiences a political season boom apart from those industries. So it will slow down. What the Southeast needs to worry about is who is getting into office. What is in it for the Southeast? Every day we hear people who don't really do anything for the Southeast tell us how much they've done. And we saw the Buhari admin take credit for the second Niger bridge, which the Jonathan administration started and even earmarked and even put money down for. We're seeing this particular government take credit for the East-West road, which was done by MTN and started under Buhari. So there are many things. We see them doing a Lagos-Sokoto road when the East-West road's completion should be a priority. When a railway line in the Eastern Corridor from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri should be a priority. They're doing a coastal road that bypasses the whole Southeast, and basically almost you're taking out the logistics benefits of the Southeast when you do that. So it's who goes in now is what the Southeast should be worried about. Election season will come and go. When whoever is coming in, what is the Southeast leveraging with? What are they negotiating with? Or will it just be another thing of, for my interest and the interest of those around me? That's what we have to worry about.
Okay. So in your analysis, has the creation of Southeast Development Commission shifted the political conversation toward long-term regional trade, or is it still focused on short-term projects?
So I'm still. Mark Okoye is a great guy. His antecedents speak for themselves. But I'm still waiting to see the full strategic blueprint. My fear, and which is what I was worried about when he appeared before the senators, when they were talking about schools and hospitals, and that's not what the SCDC is for. We should be more interested in taking Aba leather makers, to exhibitions in China and places, linking businesses in Indonesia and Malaysia to palm oil plantations in Nsukka or Afia. That's what the Development Commission should be. Then stand in the gap for the things that accelerate the economic development. Like, okay, what can we do to bring in private sector guys to come in? Security is an issue. Can we come in? Fund some aspects like maybe drones in rural areas, street lights in rural areas, things that improve security. Can we equip local security? Because this has a direct impact on people going to the farms in those communities. Can we give bikes to the forest guards that will move around and protect people in the agrarian communities? Can we make sure that there is a proper road and, if possible, light rail from agrarian communities to wherever agro processes are happening? Can we get funds, or do partner, funding for, people who want to process agro products so that more of the value chain is kept in the Southeast? These are the things that I'm waiting to see. So I think our politicians have the wrong idea of what it should be. I think the SCDC has not properly orated their plan. So we're waiting to see what the strategic plan is, how the states come into it. Power generation, there are people who have the materials, people who have the private sector power to do it. There are people who are already implementing it. There are people who are good at it. Enugu started regulation first. People are copying. So, okay, this is a good estate that understands regulation and the strategic business framework of it. Abia has shown that in terms of implementation of, direct to home, last mile, they seem to understand it very well. There are private sector players like Q6 in Nnewi that do cables, and, Anambra is working on their license for mining of minerals. Even things like ceramics can be made there for insulators. So there's just so much within the region that the SCDC's job should be to harness, have funding arrangements, with government. Counterpart funding was what I was looking for. Counterpart funding with government, which will also encourage third-party investors to come in, go for international trade fairs, take Eastern businesses, showcase them, bring partners to the East. That's what I'm expecting to see. What is the strategic plan for that? So the concept, yes, but if it's going to be like the NDDC and go around building 6-room bungalows of primary school and, spending more money painting NDDC commission project on it and calling newspaper editors to write stories on it, until today, many of them have sandy floors, roofs are caving in. They've become places where people sell marijuana. So, if that's where we are going, then we should just not bother ourselves.
Okay, so how do shifting federal trade policies, like the recent adjustments to import duties, specifically impact the manufacturing clusters in Nnewi and Aba?
So people always have this false belief in Nigeria that when you stifle importation and it promotes local manufacture and exportation and exports, you are trying to copy countries like the US that will do heavy tariffs on things coming in. You see the difference that the US has a heavy manufacturing backbone. The US don't just manufacture goods, they manufacture industries. They manufacture the things you use to build the industries that build things. Their manufacturing backbone is different. You're not going to copy their policy in a country that does not have all the raw materials, or a country that cannot even guarantee 24 hours of power to one building. The Aso Rock, the presidential villa, has a full solar budget that can solve some states' health and education needs. So I don't think a lot of the policies are well thought out. A lot of the people in the Southeast, particularly the manufacturers, rely heavily on imports. If you look at Innocent and Co., they're assembling vehicles, the brake pads, the engine blocks, they're not made here, they're imported. So it's the same thing. A lot of people that manufacture things here, they get their raw materials from outside the country. So anything you do on imports would still raise the price. It does not help. When you want to adjust or you want to make any import policy, you have to make sure that you are helping their local competition. You want to give an unfair advantage to the local option. So you say that it's either people patronize locally or they pay heavily for foreign. So it's a win-win. You're discouraging people from using foreign, and for those who want to use it, you're making them cough up more to the government. So for development. But, a lot of times all we are thinking about is just raising rates and levies and all these things. And these policies, I don't think they're always very well thought out. Many of them are copy and paste, copied from countries that don't have the same issues as Nigeria, and a lot of times it's more nefarious. It's really more about raising revenue than impacting businesses positively.
Okay, so looking ahead to the next fiscal year, what is the single most important political reform that would make the Southeast the most competitive region in Nigeria for business?
It's transport policy. Transport and logistics. Okay. There are 3 things that need to be handled. One is the Onitsha River Port. The second is the fact that the Calabar Port should be brought back online. And the third thing is that there has to be a rail line between the ports, the river ports, and the major cities. That alone. Look, if you have a railway line from Onitsha, across from Onitsha to Ikom, and from Nsukka to Port Harcourt, just that cross, before you start bringing out the logistics hubs along that route, will solve so many problems. Because you would have solved so many problems. Your rail line coming from Port Harcourt to Nsukka is going to come from River State through Afia, it's going to come into Enugu, move up to Nsukka, and can serve the middle belt. Your railway line going from Anambra to Ikom is going to cut across the Southeast. Again, you're going to come through Onitsha, through Umunya, through Oka, you're going to come into Enugu, then you're going to go into Cross River, and you're going to go all the way to the Cameroonian border. Now, the thing about this line is that even the south states around will benefit greatly, because anything in Onitsha is touching Asaba. Port Harcourt too is linked to Bayelsa and other places. By the time you get to Cross River, even to Abia, Uyo is not, and Ikotekpene are not far from Umuahia, neither are they far from, Calabar. By the time you get in the same Cross River, to get to Cross River, you have to go through Ebonyi. So you're going to go through Abakaliki. So all the industries along, rice farming, everything, everybody can, the transport and logistics is cheaper, goods get to the market cheaper, they get there faster, more businesses can come in because, if I'm doing this thing, I can process and I can move my things to ports for export. So these are the things they need to do. And that is just, except the fact that these particular things are going to instantly create jobs. Not just jobs at the site, but the extra jobs around for people who would come and be vendors, come and sell food at the train stations, do all that. So there are so many opportunities, and that's why I'm saying that I don't know what the SADC's, economic plan is, but I think that there have to be proper economic town halls, strategic. They can't be involving themselves in the day-to-day things like, let's go and build school, let's go and furnish hospital. No, that's the government's job. The state government, they are local governments, they are state governments, they are federal governments. You're a development commission. Your job is to create a strategic roadmap that the governmental, non-governmental, and organized private sector can align with for the progress of the region. That's what we should be thinking of.
Thank you very much, sir. And that's the much that we can take on the Eastern Business Report. The Afia Business Morning returns on Monday. Many thanks for staying with us. My name is Cherry Ojukwu.